What really grinds my gears is people's attitudes on Facebook groups and forums when you get into a disagreement or an argument, as some people might call it. I had a guy telling me to calm down this morning. I love that because I don't even get my blood pressure up. I mean, if I stub my toe, I might. When I lose skin on my knuckles, turning a wrench, I might. But definitely not about things I'm pretty sure about. I'm willing to stand up for my mistakes when I say something stupid. I may have said at one point or another that the ST205 gearbox has triple cone synchros. That's not what this argument is about. Somebody turned it into that, but another guy said that I had claimed the E150F Gearbox and the ST205 is better only because of the 4 number and the model number, which is indicative of the GT4, which the E150 does not have and is classified as a normal early gearbox. But the E154F gearbox, which was developed years later by Toyota for a brand new Celica that people knew, that Toyota knew people would drive hard because it was featured in their rallies, they built the E154F. Now, they didn't use this gearbox in the rallies. They used like an X-Track 6-speed or something like that. But the point is that the E154F gearbox, obviously, this is the gearbox to buy. Now, I know this not just because of this document at gt4.supras.org.nz/gearboxpics.htm. I know this because of, well, some of the things I just explained and simple research. When manufacturers release a product, they give it a part number. And when they release a new part number, they usually put a higher number. So, no, the E154F isn't better just because it's called E154F versus E150F. It's better because it's better. But anyways, let's go on to a bit of history. After Toyota got caught cheating in the rallies, they used the drive lines, the tens of thousands of drive lines that they had warehoused for the Celica, that people just seemed to, the purchases slowed down, okay? People weren't buying two-door sports cars as much, they were buying SUVs, and Toyota brilliantly designed the RAV4 on the driveline of the Celica. And not only was the RAV4 the very first crossover ever developed, it was also the first electric vehicle ever developed. So it was the first crossover electric vehicle as well. Now the 3S FE engine that they chose to put in here was fuel efficient and reliable, and because it was so much slower, they had to put a different gearbox. So they designed the E250F gearbox specifically for the 3S FE all-wheel drive combination. And if you're thinking of putting a 3S GTE on a E250F, forget about it. Don't do it. Just get the E154F GT4 gearbox straight away. The E150F all-wheel drive Caldina gearbox is different than the Celica E150F gearbox in that they upgraded they removed the VSS, vehicle speed sensor, from the Caldina's ST215 gearbox because they used the ABS computer to output the speedometer reference signal to the dash rather than using the speedometer reference or speedometer cable, which was mechanical and problematic and probably costly for Toyota to manufacture. So after the Caldina or the Celica rather, kind of started failing in North American markets and the RAV4 took off as a success, the 3S GTE engines that Toyota had, produced in order to qualify for rallies and, of course, to produce for production of Celica GT4s was a disappointment. But that engine, after leaving the ST185 and North American markets for Japan, the GT4 lived on till '99, when the Caldina, an estate wagon, kind of an ugly, underpowered station wagon, it, was expensive and leaky and whatnot. So they took those GT4 engines, if you will, and improved them electronically with coil-on plug ignition and side feed intake manifold to reduce leaning out on cylinders and whatnot, and put the E150F gearbox with modern electronics on it. And it's pretty good for its use, but if you start driving on it like a GT4, that gearbox will self-destruct. And when we get them in North America as JDM imports, they've got 40 to 100 to 120, even 130,000 kilometers on them. And if the son or the husband drove it like a GT4, out of nostalgia, you've got 60 to 100,000 K on the thing before you start really noticing slop and grind. Whereas a GT4 gearbox with 300,000 kilometers and driven hard through every one of them will last for another 200,000 kilometers. No problem. It was designed by Toyota to be driven hard, and it's just simply a better gearbox. So I don't care who you are or where you're from. If you're arguing that the Caldina gearbox is better than the GT4 gearbox, it's probably because you've never driven both to compare it. It just annoys me that you can't realize that Toyota would put a better gearbox in a sports car than an estate wagon, especially after they started losing money. Now, when the Celica left North America, well, the 3S GTE, I'll call it the Celica, the secret Celica they released after, which, I'm sorry, but they're hideous, and going front wheel drive and leaving your rally history in the dust is just pathetic. But Toyota was losing a ton of money. They had to find a way to survive. So what they did was they released the Celica on its good looks and put this 2ZZ GE engine in there. And this will piss off a lot of guys who own these cars and like the 2ZZ engine, but it's garbage, guys. It was never meant to be a performance engine. It was meant to sound great and push this car through its gears to customer satisfaction, and that's about it. The 2ZZ engine was required by market conditions to be fuel efficient, and because it's a two-door sports car, it had to be sporty. So they lightened it up by using an aluminum block with sleeves, and it's got emission controls on it, which means it's slowly breathing its own exhaust gases and dying with every kilometer it's driven until that system is removed. But the 3S GTE can go in this car, but the moment that you finally get it in there, you realize it's too fast for the front wheel drive, and the wheel hop makes you feel like you're driving a Honda. So I don't even get into these cars, but again, people who argue that new is better, it's probably because they own new and don't want to relearn anything, admit they're wrong. But Toyota would have been a failed car company without taking this Celica and releasing it as this model, because it's cheap to produce, really cheap to produce. And the 2ZZ engine Guys are spending thousands of dollars trying to improve the performance of that engine, and there's guys from Toyota who are sitting at home going, why are you wasting your time doing that? Even I, the engineer at Toyota, specifically downgraded the Celica's engine by designing the 2ZZ so that we could save money and just satisfy the customer. That's what Toyota engineers would say, and that's what anyone who really understands Toyota's history would say, because the 3S GTE engine is the baby brother of the 2JZ GTE engine that's in the twin turbo Supra. The 1JZ engine was, improved upon and slapped 2 turbos and put into the Supra. The Supra started its day as a big Celica. That's what Supra Celica means. The Celica came first, and it had, the 3S GTE engine put in it around the time of the ST205 in order to sort of, qualify for that rally class. But when it comes to the overall perspective of Toyota, the 2JZ GTE and the 3S GTE, they're related. They complement each other. They have the same 86 by 86 bore and stroke. That's the optimal bore and stroke for a race car. And the GT86 is commemorative of the 3S GTE. And most people don't get that either. Now, the Subaru guys, who are ever so faithful to Subaru, even though Toyota bailed them out and taught them everything they know about rallying, they still hate on the 3S GTE. And I can't understand why, because the 2JZ GTE earns respect around the world on every racetrack of any kind. And the 3S GTE gets beat on like a typical baby brother. But this baby brother is an MMA class fighter. The 3S GTE engine is top notch. And all-wheel drive, 9,000 RPM with Toyota history, reliability. I don't care how fast anything else is. When I'm done racing, I can drive clear across the country. When you're done racing, you're changing head gaskets, axles, all kinds of crap. And I open my hood and it looks like Toyota just released it from their showroom. Not a mess of nasty wires and just, So anyways, there are no arguments when you're a Toyota fan.